How to develop imagination. The development of imaginative ability is a complex and a long process. The first thing one should do is to enrich his experiences. Any experiences would do. It could be physical experiences such as an excursion or a camping trip. It also could be a mental or spiritual experiences like reading and movie watching. These experiences give a person enough materials to recreate. But that alone doesn't do the trick. If a person's mind is always busy, he won't have a peaceful state of mind to let his imagination soar. Therefore, it is equally important for a person to take breaks from his work or study from time to time.
What creative activities do you like to do when you were young?
I liked painting on the wall a lot. I didn't have any brush or paint. I only used painting chalk to do so. I hadn't learnt anything about drawing, but I think I did a pretty good work.
Why do people like to copy others' ideas these days?
It's always easier to imitate than to create. Very few people can come up with new ideas these days, and the fashion trends come and go, and make it so hard to catch up with. I guess that's why people copy others' ideas.
How can we cultivate children's creativity?
Well, it's a complex process. I think first we need to give children space and tools. We don't teach them what to do or how to do it. They should create it on their own. And what's more, we should keep asking them questions about their feelings. In this way, they will pay attention to their own feelings and themselves, so the creation or improvisation starts to emerge in their head.
Why does art help to nurture creativity?
Unlike sciences, art doesn't have any formula in it, or you can say it doesn't have a fixed pattern, so one can find his or her own style by learning art.
Why do most children have a wild imagination? Well, I suppose there are a couple of reasons for this trend. For one thing, most children in my country are more likely to spend time on campus, and they'd prefer to stay focused on one thing at a time. School is the place where cultivate wild imagination, because children at school do not have to worry too much about their future career and the development as well. And, they have plenty of time to do something they like, and the interest is the most important thing, especially for those who want great career. And the interest, to a large extent, equals a wild imagination. The creative adult is the child who survived. For another, most children tend to try something new, and they are less likely to experience more about the social reality. And that's to say, they could make full use of their imagination in some fields they like, and they keep practicing and keep moving. And probably that'll be like the main reason for this trend, for this wild imagination. So that's it.
Why do most children have a wild imagination? Alright, so from my understanding, most children, they're young in experience, which give them no limitation on finding the solution or maybe come up with the quite a picture unprecedented to describe something they want to achieve. And this would this limitless thought is actually the fundamental for the wild imagination. They haven't learned any of the systematic way to deal with the problems, and so that's also give them a chance to just fix whatever they want in the way they feel suitable, right? What kind of books can boost people's imagination? So in my opinion, imagination, they're actually the abilities which could construct the ideas out of thin air, maybe to think of something nobody ever did before. Well, so it would also require someone's creativity to generate their idea out of thin air. Well, therefore, some of the maybe handcraft books, which to aim to encourage people's ideas on using the raw material to represent their emotions, will be quite useful for the imagination boosting. Besides, some of the scientific book to describe things might quite far away from our daily life would also provide an opportunity for individuals to think about something more profoundly. Okay, so those are the books I could think of would be benefits for one's imagination. Do you like to watch a movie about the future? Okay. So actually, futures, it's full of possibility and technology, and movies usually are a form of expressions that depicts from life, but and also maybe to represent it in a more profound or higher level way. Therefore, watching in the process of watching this kind of movies could actually provide me a sense of wondering what my life maybe in 20 years or 30 years later would be. So it's quite like intriguing. Well, I'm quite of a big fan of the future movie. All right. So what can schools do for students' creativity? Well, so from my point of understanding, creativity is the ability to come up with different ideas or generate a personal individual's contemplations out of the raw material or the existing condition. Well, so some of the classes like that which school could provide would be quite helpful for students' creativity, like the drawing classes, the painting classes. It required students to represent their ideas on a blank paper without any of the limitations or maybe even a form of hint. And also the handicrafts or pottery lessons also required them to create their masterpiece or the artwork out of the raw material. Well, those are the lessons or maybe things school can do to boost up children's creativity, I guess.
Okay, here is a short video on the part 3 topic of imagination. Let's have a listen.
How to develop imagination.
This is not even a question. In English, this is not how you form how questions. You can't say how to in a question. How do people develop imagination? Yes, that would be a right question.
The development of imaginative ability.
But look at this now, how he changes imagination into an adjective. Imaginative ability, that's pretty good.
It's a complex and a long process.
Okay, and some good adjectives to describe a process, complex and long, although usually we say long and complex, but that doesn't matter much.
The first thing one should do is to enrich his experiences.
Who is he? I don't know.
Any experiences would do. It could be
Stress on any experiences would do.
physical experiences such as an excursion or a camping trip. It also could be mental or spiritual experiences like reading and movie watching.
Okay, the ideas are good. We can become more creative through experiences, physical experiences, and mental experiences. Excursion is a pretty good word, like a trip somewhere. Now, problem here is he says and then he says experiences. It could also be mental experiences. Nope. Movie watching. I'm not going to say that's wrong, but you don't hear people say movie watching very often. Usually they say watching movies, right?
Materials to recreate.
Wait a second, what is going on here?
These experiences give a person enough materials to recreate.
Okay, now before he changed imagination into imaginative, which was pretty good. Now I think he's trying to take recreation and turn it into a verb, recreate. And it kind of works, although usually this word is pronounced as recreate, meaning to create again. But yeah, you can say to recreate, but the way that he pronounces it sounds like
enough materials to recreate.
Okay, I'm not going to say pronunciation is wrong, but usually it's recreate, not recreate.
But that alone doesn't do the trick.
To do the trick, that's a nice idiomatic phrase. To be successful, to do something successfully.
A person's mind is always busy. He won't have a...
Why on earth is this one sentence? Okay, if a person's mind is always busy, yeah, then what happens?
Mind is always busy, he won't have a peaceful state of mind to let his imagination soar.
This is also a great vocabulary. Your imagination soar, like fly through the sky, that kind of soar. Yeah, but these words go together so well. Imagination soar, great words.
Therefore, it is equally important for a person to take breaks from his work or study from time to time.
Okay, so we need some input, we need some experiences, whether they be physical or mental, but we also need some time to relax in order to let our imagination soar. Some pretty good ideas in that answer, I have to say.
What creative activities do you like to do when you were young?
Do you like to do? Oh my goodness, why is it do? Surely this should be in the past tense. Did you like to do when you were young? Okay, now let's listen to this woman talk. Let's listen to this woman talk.
I liked painting on the wall a lot. I didn't have any brush or paint. I only used painting chalk to do so. I hadn't learnt anything about drawing, but I think I did a pretty good work.
What can I say about this? Simple sentence, simple sentence, simple sentence. Then she goes with past perfect. All right. I hadn't learned. Okay, good. Did a pretty good work. Do people say that? I think I did a pretty good job, not pretty good work. But all right.
Why do people like to copy others' ideas these days?
Do they?
It's always easier to imitate than to create.
Good point. Easier to imitate. Imitate's a great word to use.
Very few people can come up with new ideas these days.
Why is that different from the past? But yeah, the verb come up with. Well, actually, the verb come up. Great verb to use with ideas, to come up with ideas.
Can come up with new ideas these days, and the fashion trends come and go.
What does this have to do with fashion? I'm not sure.
And make it so hard to catch up with.
Catch up with what? Don't know.
I guess that's why people copy others' ideas.
I don't even understand what she's saying now. I understand about this. It's easier to imitate than to create. Good. Get it. I got it. Few people can come up with new ideas. I got that. Fashion trends come and go. Why limit yourself to fashion? It's hard to catch up with what? The latest trends? Is that what she's referring to? I don't know. A lot of these ideas seem to be incomplete.
How can we cultivate children's creativity?
Well, it's a complex process. I think first we need to give children space and tools.
Okay. Got it.
We don't teach them what to do or how to do it. They should create it on their own.
Easy to understand.
What's more, we should keep asking them questions about their feelings. In this way, they will pay attention to their own feelings and themselves.
Got that.
So the creation or improvisation starts to emerge in their head.
I don't really understand the link between asking children how they feel and that creating an improvisation in their head, but okay. The language is good. Look at this here. Noun, improvisation. Verb, emerge. Good grief, this is very good. The improvisation starts to emerge in their head. That's a good phrase, even though I don't quite understand the link between these two ideas. But let's move on.
Why does art help to nurture creativity?
Nurture is another great word you can use with creativity to help foster creativity or to help somebody become more creative.
Unlike sciences, art doesn't have any form.
Oh, we need a comma there. Okay, so try and contrast with the word unlike.
Unlike sciences, art doesn't have any formula in it. Or you can say it doesn't have a fixed pattern.
Good point. No formula, no fixed pattern.
So one can find his or her own style by learning art.
Why does art help to nurture creativity? Oh, because it's more freeing. All right, there's no fixed pattern. You are more free to express yourself in any way you want. There's no singular correct answer. Okay, I got what she's saying. You can find your own style, all right?
Why do most children have a wild imagination? Well, I suppose there are a couple of reasons for this trend. For one thing, most children in my country are more likely to spend time on campus.
Okay, so like children spend time on campus. I got that.
And they'd prefer to stay focused on one thing at a time.
Well, I don't know. If anybody knows any children, you know that they can't stay focused on one thing for a long time. They have a very short attention span.
School is the place where cultivate wild imagination.
See, now he's using cultivate and imagination also, but he mispronounces it. And he says well. What did he say? Well?
Where cultivate wild imagination.
Maybe our, I don't know. Okay, so school is the place where our imagination is cultivated. If you're going to have school as the subject of your sentence, then it's got to be in the passive voice where our imagination is cultivated.
Cultivate wild imagination. Because children at school do not have to worry too much.
Oh, that's not to, that's do, right? Okay, so children at school do not have to worry about...
Because children at school do not have to worry too much about their future career and the development as well.
Their future career and the development. The development of what? What are you talking about?
And, they have plenty of time to do something they like.
They have plenty of time to do what they like. What they like.
Interest is the most important thing, especially for those who want a great career.
I don't understand. He just said kids don't care about their future career. But it's an important thing for those who want a great career. What? What is happening? Why is he saying this?
The most important thing, especially for those who want a great career. And
also, careers are countable, so those who want a great career.
interest, to a large extent, equals a wild imagination.
Interest, to a large extent, equals a wild imagination. Interest in what? He talked about careers. I got that. Interest in what? Interest in your career equals a wild imagination? I don't understand.
The creative adult is the child who survived.
I don't know what this means either. Creative adults are children who don't die?
For another, most children tend to try something new and they are less likely to experience more about the social reality.
He's saying a lot of words, but I don't know what the meaning behind the words is. Tend to try something new. Okay? I don't know. I don't know what he's saying.
And that's to say, they could make full use of their imagination in some fields they like. And they keep practicing and they keep moving.
Keep practicing, keep moving. Does he mean physically moving?
And probably that'll be like the main reason for this trend, for this wild imagination. So that's it.
Well, that was very unclear. I don't know what he said.
Why do most children have a wild imagination? Alright, so from my understanding, most children, they're young in experience.
Okay, but you don't need to describe children. You want a reason. You don't need to describe children as young and inexperienced. Also, the adjective is inexperienced.
Most children, they're young in experience, which gives them no limitation on finding the solution or maybe.
You can give somebody no limitation, so which does not limit their ability to find a solution, which doesn't limit their ability to find a solution.
Come up with the quite a picture.
Quite off picture. What does this even mean?
Present it to describe something they want to achieve.
Okay, here's another example of somebody who's just using words, but I don't know what he's saying. He's not using any of these words correctly.
And this would this limitless thought is actually the fundamental.
Now, hang on a second. Did you say thought or thoughts? Oh, come on now.
Would this limitless thought is actually.
My bad. He said thought. Okay, I do like the limitless thought. So what's that like? Imagination, right? Limitless thought is imagination. So this imagination is the fundamental what?
And this would this limitless thought is actually the fundamental for the wild imagination.
Fundamental is an adjective. So what is the noun here? Is the fundamental basis? Maybe basis for a wild imagination?
The wild imagination. They haven't learned any of the systematic way to.
If you say any, then the next noun has to be plural. Any of the systematic ways.
Deal with the problems.
No the. To deal with problems, no the.
So that's also give them a chance.
That, there's no s, and that also gives them a chance
To just fix whatever they want in the way they feel suitable. Right. What kind of books can boost people's imagination? Well, so in my opinion, imagination, they're actually.
Nope. Imagination is not a plural noun, so it's not there. It is the ability. No s. It is actually the ability.
The abilities which could construct the ideas out of.
Again, why are you starting with a definition? What kinds of books can boost people's imagination? You should be talking about books, not defining what imagination is.
Out of thin air, maybe to think.
Okay, I do like this, to construct something. Well, I like the out of thin air. So if you start with nothing and then you create something, it means you've created something out of thin air. Kind of like magic. Well, not really magic, but I mean you started from scratch. You started with nothing.
Something nobody ever did it before. Well, so it would also require someone's creativity to.
Okay, so far he hasn't answered the question at all.
Generate their idea out of thin air.
And he's saying the same thing again.
Well, there were some of the maybe handcraft books.
Why don't you start with this? Okay, some handicraft books. Okay.
Which to aim to.
There's no to. Which aim, not to. Which aim to encourage people's ideas.
Encourage people's ideas on using the raw material.
I do like this. Encourage people's ideas on using, maybe no the, just using raw materials. This is good.
On using the raw material to represent their emotions will be quite useful.
Will be quite useful. There's no. Wait, what? I made a mistake here.
Represent their emotions will be quite useful.
The of, always with the of. There's no of. Will be quite useful.
This will be quite useful for the imagination boosting.
There's no such thing as imagination boosting. It'll be quite useful in boosting people's imagination.
Imagination boosting.
No, in boosting people's imagination.
Some of the scientific book.
Some, no of, no the, some scientific books describing things.
To describe things might quite be
What did he say here?
Describe things might quite be far.
Quite be far. Might quite be far. Be quite far. Might be quite far. The modal goes with the verb. The adverb goes with the adjective. Okay, so some of the ideas that come out of scientific books might seem quite far removed from our daily lives.
Our daily life would also provide an opportunity for
which would also
individuals to think about something more profoundly.
What is he saying here? Think more profoundly about what?
Something more profoundly, okay?
No. This is right. Think is a verb, so the adverb, profoundly. But here it's a noun, something more profound. Here we have that. We need the adjective.
So those are the books I could think of would be benefits for one's imagination.
Okay, so those are the books I can think of that would benefit. This is a verb, so we don't need the be. Those are the books I could think of that would benefit our imagination.
One's imagination. Do you like to watch a movie about the future? Okay. So actually futures, it's full.
Nope, it's only one future. There's no S. So actually the future is full of possibility.
Possibility and technology, and movies usually are a form of expressions that depicts from life.
Again, why the definition? We don't need a definition of a movie.
Well, and also maybe to represent it in a more
he said present it, not presented. To present it. I don't know what the it refers to. The it means what? What is he saying? I don't know what it refers to. It's unclear what the referencing is here.
to represent it in a more profound or higher level way.
He likes using the word profound. Okay.
Therefore, in the process of watching this kind of movies could actually provide.
Therefore, watching. Okay, so we don't need the preposition here. So just start with the process of watching these films could actually provide.
Movies could actually provide me a sense of wondering.
It's not a sense of wondering. It's a sense of wonder.
What my life, maybe in 20 years or 30 years later, would be.
Okay. Also, it's. Wow. Okay. I don't know where to start with this. Provide me with a sense of wonder about what my life might be like in 20 or 30 years. There's no later. If you say in, there's no later. So what my life would be like in 20 or 30 years, what my life would be like in 20 or 30 years.
30 years later would be. So it's quite like intriguing. Well, I'm kind of.
It's quite of like. Did I hear this right?
The 30 years later would be. So it's quite like intriguing.
No, there's no of. It's quite like intriguing. It would be a whole lot better if you didn't say the like there, but okay.
So it's quite like intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm kind of a big fan of the future movie.
There's no such thing as future movie. There is sci-fi movies. Well, there are movies about the future, but there are no future movies. So I'm quite a big fan of. Sci-fi movies about the future.
Future movie. All right. So what can schools do for students' creativity?
Let's throw in an apostrophe there. Students' creativity. Okay.
Activity. Well, so from my point of
I can see another definition coming.
understanding, creativity is the ability to come up with different ideas or generate a personal individual.
Okay, so let's see when he starts talking about schools.
Contemplations out.
This word is contemplations.
The raw material or the existing condition.
All of this is nonsense. Okay, so here we start from well. Okay, so some classes. There we go. This is where your answer should start.
Well, so some of the classes like that which school could provide would be quite helpful for students' creativity, like
Again, this is very unclear. This drawing classes should be earlier in the sentence. So some classes like drawing classes, not like that. So some drawing classes that schools provide would be helpful in fostering students' creativity.
like the drawing classes, the painting classes.
Well, I think they're usually just called art classes.
It required students to
Why is this in the past tense? It requires students.
present their ideas on a blank paper without any of the limitations or maybe even a form of hint.
Okay, this is any, and this is form. There's no t with any hints. Okay, maybe guidance without any guidance.
And also the handicrafts or pottery lessons
Yeah, but realistically, how many schools have pottery lessons? That sounds dangerous.
also required them to create their
Also required. Did he say required?
also required them to create
He did. Okay, so here he's going to the past tense. I don't know why.
also required them to create their masterpiece or the artwork out of the raw material.
It's not a bad idea. I mean, using the word masterpiece is quite nice, and actually create the masterpiece out of raw material is pretty good. There should be no the though. Create their masterpieces out of raw material.
Well, those are the lessons, or maybe things school can do
Things.
to boost up children's
There's no up to boost children's creativity, not boost up.
creativity, I guess.
Okay, kind of hard to follow what most of these people are saying.